Now it's time for something decadent. Once you've tried my coconut caramel sandwich cookies, you will understand why. 2 icebox cookies, delicate and tender, sandwiched around a coconut jam. Now, don't be daunted when you see the recipe calling for 2 1/4 cups of butter. That's a lot of butter. It makes a lot of cookies. So this is softened, and I'm gonna sift onto that 1 1/3 cups of icing sugar. Here we go. I'll beat this until it's nice and fluffy. And I'll add 1 1/2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. There we go. So now I simply add the flour, 3 cups of all-purpose flour. And lastly, 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I'll mix this just until blended. There we go. And just like the other cookie doughs, this dough needs its icebox time. I'll shape the dough into 2 discs wrapped in plastic before I chill it down. My original inspiration for this cookie was the South American alfajores, filled with a caramel dulce de leche. But I was inspired on travel to Southeast Asia and fell in love with a coconut caramel jam called kaya. So I decided to make it a more global experience. I'll pop this dough in the fridge, but here's a little inside scoop on this particular recipe. With all that butter, the dough sets up so firmly that I actually want to pull it from the fridge 1/2 an hour before I want to roll it. So I just leave it on the kitchen counter, and it softens it up just enough so that it rolls easily, but without being too soft. This is a recipe I prefer not kneading the dough before I start rolling it, just so it doesn't soften too quickly. But as I roll in small motions and rotating the dough often. And if you see a few cracks develop, you're gonna use your cookie cutter to work around it. For my sandwich cookies, I'm using a simple plain round cutter. What I love best about this dough is how delicate it is. And once baked, it just absolutely melts in your mouth. I've preheated my oven to 350, and they take 13 to 15 minutes to bake. Barely a hint of browning around the edges. And a little tip, if you find with your oven that your cookies do tend to brown, what you can do is rotate the pans halfway through cooking. That evens out the air circulation, and you get more of a golden color as opposed to browning. And here we go. This is exactly why I love the icebox cookie style. When the cookies are baked, they hold their shape, which means when I sandwich 2 together, they'll match up perfectly. But now I have to make that filling. It's called kaya, and it's a caramel coconut kind of jam, but it's not made like a jam. I actually make it cooking coconut milk and eggs together. So I've got 5 whole eggs here in a bowl. I'm gonna whisk this together. And I'm going to add to that a cup of coconut milk. Now, you do want to use good quality coconut milk. And often when you buy it in the tin, the cream is separated from the water. So I like to puree it first before I measure it. So you can really see how thick that coconut milk is. Now to add sweetness, because it truly is a sweet, thick, jam-like spread. 3/4 cup of regular granulated sugar. But then to add a truly distinctive flavor, coconut palm sugar. You might see it sold as Gula Melaka. And you can find it often here in health food stores or bulk stores, and I need a half a cup. If you can't find coconut palm sugar, you could use turbinado sugar in the exact same measure. Now this is what lends that caramel taste and its own special sweetness. It smells so good. And now the last ingredient is the flavoring. In North America, we're accustomed to using vanilla in a lot of our baking, but pandan is something just so special. It's distinctive, a little bit earthy, but yet it makes the coconut taste more coconutty, the caramel flavor tastes more caramelly. And just like treating a vanilla bean, you need to infuse it into whatever it is you're cooking. I tie my leaves into a knot, drop it in, and the heat will extract that flavor as I'm making my kaya. If you can't find pandan, you can also add vanilla instead. You have to cook your kaya gently, just like you do a lemon curd, because of the whole eggs. So I'm placing it over a pot of barely simmering water, and this is where you have to be patient. For the first 20 minutes of cooking, you want to whisk it occasionally, but not constantly. But after that 20 minutes, that's where you want to stay put and keep whisking it for another 20 minutes. Wow, and look at this after the 40 minutes. It really does thicken up. And it's amazing because of the heat, it brings out that fragrance in the pandan. It's easy to get hooked on this, let me tell you. Let me pull out the pandan leaf. Just like pulling out a vanilla bean from something you've infused, it's time to take it out. And it has cooked down. And then what I like to do to ensure it's nice and smooth is puree it again. So I'll pour it into a container and just smooth it out. You want to let this cool to room temperature before you pop it in the fridge to chill. And you want to give it lots of time to chill, about 6 hours, and it really thickens up and sets. But now you get to see it in use as part of this wonderful sandwich cookie. So it spreads easily. Look at that beautiful, thick kaya. Put it on the bottom of one of my icebox cookies. Top it with a second. Give it a little press to push it just to the edges. And there you go. After you've assembled your cookies, you want to pop them in the fridge and store them chilled, but they will keep for a few days refrigerated. One of the things I love most about baking is that it's a constant learning process. Whether it's a new ingredient or a new technique, there's always something to learn.